cursor freezes, the event stream flatlines, silence, thick, electric, deafening. Intent is present. Systems look away. Journeys don't scream. They go quiet. Here's what actually happened and what you'll learn. How to reconstruct a journey's death. How to prevent the next one. How to read silent failures. Signal loss, blocked channels, misfired triggers, suppression collisions. Pause. Over-automation kills more journeys than under-automation. A cabinet slides, metal against metal. A folder thuds onto the table. Case file 1 waits. Prologue. The body of the journey. It started in an ordinary tenant. Cold air on server fins. The faint tick of a rack PDU. Then, quiet. The graph stops moving. No alert. No heat spike. Just a room that should echo with intent and doesn't. We trace the body by sequence. Signal, then footprint, then anomaly, then contradiction, then suspects. In this environment, order matters. Signal first, a clean page view on pricing. Scroll to the mid-tier plan. Another scroll to enterprise features. Dwell time climbs. Steady, not erratic. Identity resolution holds. Auth cookie valid. Device fingerprint stable. No cross-device hop. Consent flag reads true. The signal is alive. Footprint next. Add to cart fires. Cart value set above threshold. Shipping estimator opened. Discount field focused, then abandoned. A second add to cart confirms intent. No accidental tap. The window is open. This is where a guarded trigger should step forward. Evaluate, consent, consult caps, select channel, act. Scene control should move. It doesn't. But here's where it gets interesting. Anomaly. Delivery systems look clean. Email queue shows nothing pending. SMS gateway idle. Push service quiet. Frequency caps unused. Suppression logs flat. No retries. No backoff. No dead letter entries. The absence itself is the anomaly. When machines refuse to speak, silence becomes the event. We pause and check chronology. The session remains authenticated. Interaction density would usually cross the authored threshold. The footprint fits a known fingerprint. High value, repeated add, dwell over 60 seconds, no purchase. A trigger should have recorded an evaluation, ID, conditions, verdict. That artifact is missing. No trigger record, no guardrail log, no action. The chain breaks at the first decision. Upon closer examination, contradiction surfaces. Slowly, profile consent says allowed for email and SMS. Elsewhere, policy precedence denies commercial email at the brand layer. Parallel truths, no meeting point. The evidence suggests an orchestration path that reads profile flags, but never resolves the lattice. Consent true, policy deny. The door is both open and locked. Pause. Consent is the key. Precedence is the lock. We test for alternate explanations. Throttling, none. Service protection 429s, none. Connector outages, no incidents recorded. Manual intervention, no agent task created. The metrics show health of everything downstream from a decision that never existed. A clean delivery dashboard for a message that wasn't created is a polished gravestone. Now we enumerate suspects, each with a profile. Static segments, slow. They write history, not scenes. They deliver yesterday's truth tomorrow. Batch windows miss heat. Membership counts hide decay. They cannot capture cross the line at T with lineage. Manual processes unreliable. Humans move in minutes. Intent expires in seconds. Alerts drown in channels. No idempotency on hands. No proof of action at the moment of action. Ownership diffuses. Responsibility blurs. Real-time journeys. Uncontrolled. When unmanaged. Fast. Conditional. Powerful. But without guardrails, they misfire broadly. loop on self-rights and collide with suppression. Speed becomes damage. The implication is structural. Without a trigger evaluation artifact, you cannot prove cause. Without a guardrail decision captured as one object, consent with precedence caps suppression, you cannot explain why a path did or didn't proceed. Without an ITEM potency key, you cannot prevent duplicate action or make safe retries. Without a goal exit and a time exit, you cannot end the pursuit cleanly. Evidence must ladder. We revisit the scene and slow the frame. At 112, add to cart. At 113, a second add. Dwell continues. At 114, refresh. At 115, idle. The orchestration shows no entry. The lab shows no chain. The body lies between intent and action, unattended. Now the unanswered question, why did no one intervene? Because silence isn't treated as an incident. Teams monitor sends, not non-sends against eligible fingerprints. They watch delivery, not evaluation counts. They page on errors, not on absences. In a forensic environment, missing artifacts are evidence. Here, they passed as normal. Everything changes when you align three truths. First, timing is currency. Heat decays by the minute. Second, context is law. Consent must be resolved with precedence before channel choice. Third, proof is survival. Decisions must leave a trail that reconstructs motive and method. Upon closer examination, one more detail matters, the physical trace. No cache warming for the trigger, no pre-flight policy simulation at publish. If a simulator had run the intended cohort through the consent lattice, the brand-level block would have surfaced. The journey would have branched to SMS or to an agent task. Instead, it shipped email or nothing. The evidence suggests what should be present on any living journey. A trigger evaluation record with a unique hash, identity plus case attributes plus timestamp. A guardrail artifact logging consent verdict with precedence path, frequency cap state, and suppression hits. An action record bound to an ITEM potency key with attempt, provider response, and back-off schedule. An exit record tied to a goal with reason codes. Without this spine, analysis turns into folklore. Still, one sound lingers, the faint click of a relay in the rack as the load drops. That's how a journey dies, not with an error, with a quiet that no one has been trained to hear. Bring in the suspects. Doors open, white light, metal hinge, controlled steps. We proceed to questioning. Evidence first, implication next, then the unanswered question. Interrogation I, static segments. The historian arrives late. The first suspect sits without protest. Static segments, the historian. Slow, certain after the fact. The evidence suggests latency disguised as order. A segment compiles at 0202. The decisive act occurred at 0112. The list is accurate. The moment is gone. We trace artifacts. Segment definition. High-value cart abandoners. Last 24 hours. Batch schedule. Nightly. Eligibility logic. Rolling window. Event count. Cart total. Missing fields. Entry timestamp. Causality marker. Trigger fingerprint. The historian records membership, not the crossing of a line. Upon closer examination, decay hides in averages. Membership counts rise. Median time since intent rises faster. Heat cools. A clean cohort chart conceals a dying window. Evidence, dwell spikes at T. Outreach lands at T55 minutes. Too late to change the decision that already happened at T+20. Now this is important because timing is currency. Segments pay late fees. Intent priced at minutes depreciates into summaries, priced at days. The dashboard smiles, the journey bleeds. We test the threshold problem. Rule, 5 site visits in 7 days. The case shows a 3-visit burst in 10 minutes around checkout. The burst expresses urgency. The rule ignores it. The historian listens for trends. The scene needed a microphone. Consider lineage. A living chain would show event, trigger evaluation, guardrail verdict, action, exit. The static path shows segment membership at 02 quark, Email sent at 0207. No cause, only correlation. Courts don't accept photographs taken tomorrow. Micro story. A celebratory slide. Re-engagement segment increased opens by 5%. Fabric later revealed a coincident password reset policy forcing sign-ins. Security drove opens. The segment took the credit. That's the danger. History masquerading as motive. We examine guardrails. Segments rarely carry policy at decision time. They don't resolve consent precedence per person on entry. They don't snapshot frequency cap state. They don't stamp idempotency. Guardrails live elsewhere, if anywhere. When the action fires, it relies on a different truth than the list used to select the person. Parallel facts. No intersection. The implication is structural. Static views cannot encode why now. Without why now, you can't separate signal from coincidence. You optimize around counts. You ignore causality. Improvements drift. We check blast radius. Delayed sends collide with new states. At 0207, numbers changed, consent flipped, another journey enrolled, caps engaged. Late action meets a different person than the one the list described. The historian writes a clean account of a place that no longer exists. Still, the unanswered question. Can the historian help? Yes, if demoted. Use segments as eligibility pools, not triggers. Let them define who could be acted on. Let a guarded trigger decide when. We prescribe artifacts that make history useful. Attach an inclusion timestamp. Attach the delta that tipped the person in. Bind a provisional fingerprint ID, so when a real-time trigger fires, lineage can stitch pool contained to scene detected. Store the policy resolution taken at the moment of action, not a day later. Without these, the segment is a rumor. We test a safer pattern. Pool, eligible for cart saves, refreshed hourly. Trigger, real-time, add to cart, with dwell. Guardrails, consent lattice, caps, suppression, re-entry. Action, channel by allowance with item potency keyed on contact ID plus cart ID. Exit, purchase or 24-hour timeout. The historian feeds the sprinter with restraint. The scene gets timing, the pool provides scope. We add a cooling contract. Once a person receives an action, mark a re-entry window. The pool can't re-enroll until the window expires or severity rises. The historian stops rewriting the same paragraph. Microstory. A retailer replaced weekly abandoners with a pool plus trigger pattern. Volume dropped 60%. Conversions rose, complaints fell. Fabric lineage turned debates into evidence. We instrument absence. Fabric monitor. Eligible events versus evaluations for pool members. Alert when events appear, but no trigger evaluations follow. A green delivery chart cannot absolve a missing decision log. We set constraints. If you can't add inclusion timestamps and deltas, the segment cannot command action. If you can't resolve consent precedence at action time, the segment cannot select a channel. If you can't bind item potency keys, the segment cannot schedule sequences. Advice is fine. Authority requires evidence. In the end, the profile stands. Predictable, slow, always late to the scene. Static memory preserves what happened. Journeys need to act while it happens. The historian may testify. It cannot save. Interrogation 2. Manual processes. The witness who blinks. The second suspect enters without ceremony. Manual processes. The witness who blinks. Unreliable at the moment that matters. The evidence suggests a timing mismatch laid over machine speed. Signals move in milliseconds. People move in minutes. The gap consumes intent. A high-value add to cart at 112. A Teams post at 113 into a channel with 143 unread. The owner is at lunch. The alert sits behind a spreadsheet and an email draft. 3 seconds pass. The window closes. No save. Upon closer examination, the workflow is a swivel chair. Copy from one system, paste into another. verify a field, forget to click save, no item potency on hands. The same contact gets 2 calls, or none. Alert fatigue amplifies the failure. Without severity or routing, every ping is equal. None are credible. Rules shuffle messages into folders. Nobody opens. Phones buzz. Batteries die. The signal buries itself under its own noise. We check for artifacts. Actions that matter should leave traces. Call placed, task assigned, outcome recorded. In manual ops, traces arrive late or not at all. Notes are backdated. Tasks are created after the fact. Memory stands in for logs. Courts don't accept recollections. Ownership is diffuse. An alert says assigned. The assignee is a rotating name on a spreadsheet. Shifts roll. No handoff. No duty roster. The message lands in a mailbox of someone off today. Delivery recorded, reception unknown. The chain breaks at the human inbox. Now this is important because 3-second windows exist everywhere. A chat invite times out. A payment retry token expires. A web session still holds a card key. If a person doesn't act inside that slice, orchestration cannot reconstruct it later. The witness looked away. The event moved on. Micro story. A churn score spikes for a top account at 1802. A bot posts to a general channel. No tags. The account manager sees it at 0817. The customer cancelled at 1911. The postmortem cites no after hours SLA. That's not a cause. That's a confession. We examine 4 recurring gaps. 1. No proof of action. Systems cannot verify behavior followed the alert. 2. Unverifiable remediation. Outcomes exist only in chat. 3. Missing escalation. Timers lapse with no reroute. 4. Circular blame. Marketing blames sales. Sales blames IT blames marketing. The customer leaves. The evidence suggests a reframing. Humans should decide exceptions, not execute routine. Let the system act within guardrails. Let people handle nuance, policy exceptions, concessions, tone. Replace click to send with intervene only when these conditions hold. To trace reliable manual assists, look for 5 elements. A scored alert, severity encoded, not implied. A direct route to the accountable human, not the crowd. A timer, acknowledge within minutes or auto-escalate. A playbook, short steps tied to data. A closed loop, system marks outcome. Analytics attribute the save. We test consent in this context. A human cannot override policy blind. If email is denied, switching to SMS without a lattice check creates liability. Manual steps must pass the same gates. Consent with precedence, suppression, frequency caps. The system should gate. The human should choose among permitted branches. Instrument the path. Use adaptive cards that carry the case. Fields, severity, SLA, owner, backup, context, score chart, last contact, consent verdict, cap state. Buttons, acknowledge, call now, reassign. Each choice writes back to Dataverse. The loop closes as part of the action, not later. Microstory. 2 midnight calls reach the same customer. 1 from a nurture step, 1 from a manual callback. Exchange throttles transcriptions. A complaint lands. Logs show 2 systems acting. They could not see each other. Manual and automated collided because neither carried idempotency per case. Guardrails make human help safe. Cooling periods. Once contacted, set a timer. Item potency keys. Bind action to case hash so duplicates collapse. Re-entry rules. Require severity escalation for a second pass. Suppression. Respect global lists even under pressure. Evidence. Log the outcome at click, not tomorrow. We add routing discipline. Assign a single owner with a clock. Name the backup. On no acknowledgement by tplow 10 minutes. Auto-escalate. Call, SMS, or on-call manager. Silence is an event. It must page. We check the lab. Fabric should bind the manual case to the same fingerprint and idempotency key as automation. trigger evaluation, guardrail verdict, human acknowledgement, action outcome, exit reason. One chain, one story. Now the unanswered question, why keep manual steps at all? Because some saves require judgment. Price exceptions, sensitive tone, complex negotiation. Machines prepare the ground. Humans finish the case, on time, under policy, with proof. In the end, the profile holds, unreliable, distracted, absent at decisive moments. Willpower is not a system. Without scoring, routing, timers, playbooks, and evidence, the witness will blink again. Yet Interrogation 3. Real-time journeys, the sprinter without brakes. The third suspect doesn't sit, it paces. Real-time journeys, the sprinter without brakes, uncontrolled when unmanaged. The evidence suggests capability first. Fast, conditional, aware, triggers read fingerprints, add to cart, score delta, form submit, case closed. Each print carries attributes: who, what, when, consent verdict, cap state, paths branch, exits define endings. When guardrails hold, precision follows. Upon closer examination, order matters. A guarded trigger must evaluate in sequence. Identity resolved, consent lattice with precedence, suppression consulted, frequency caps applied, eligibility confirmed. Only then should the path open. Email, SMS, push, agent task, or a call to power automate. Each step must log intent, decision, and outcome with timestamps. Without the trail, speed becomes speculation. The real secret is cross-channel discipline. Best channel now should be learned preference plus lawful allowance, not a coin toss. One act, one channel, one slot reserved under caps. No parallel sends, no echo attempts. Goal exits end the pursuit on success. Control expressed as choreography. But the patterns reveal risks at the edges. Misfires start with loose fingerprints. A cart event without a value threshold enrolls accidental taps. A page visited without dwell or depth ingests noise. The wrong cohort floods in, consumes caps, and blocks the right ones later. The first error creates the second. Loops cut deeper. Re-entry open by default means the same person requalifies on every small state change. Worst case, echo triggers from self-writes. The journey updates last contacted. The update fires the trigger. The journey re-enters, sets the field again. Round trip under a second, repeating at scale. Capacity spikes, exchange throttles, soft bounces stack, collateral damage spreads to unrelated paths that share budgets. Suppression collisions hide in parallel truths. One journey suppresses on open case, another on recent purchase, a third on a custom list. No common hierarchy. Flags flap as states change. A person disappears from outreach entirely, reported as compliant silence. That is design, not fate. Consent misreads are quieter. The trigger checks contact level permission. The channel enforcer honors stricter brand precedence, or the reverse. Allowed upstream becomes denied at send time. No fallback branch, no compensating action. The log records a block. The moment ends with nothing. Without a lattice step early, journeys believe myths. Now this is important because speed multiplies outcomes and mistakes. A precise system rescues within seconds. A loose one creates a mass casualty event just as fast. Real time is an amplifier, not a virtue. To trace healthy artifacts, look for 5 markers. 1. A unique trigger evaluation record, attributes, verdict, and a hash bound to case identity. 2. A unified guardrail artifact, consent with precedence path, cap state with remaining budget and timestamps, suppression hits. 3. ITEM potency keys stamped on every action, prevents duplicates and collapses retries. 4. Explicit cooling windows and re-entry rules. only once per window, or only when severity escalates. 5. Exits tied to goals, clear endings with reason codes, microstory, a checkout assist, promised same session support when dwell exceeded 90 seconds on cart totals over 200. The fingerprint was clean, re-entry was open. Each refresh requalified the visitor. The chat widget spawned thrice. Agents received duplicate tasks. The visitor abandoned under the weight of help. 1 item potency key per contact cart pair would have reduced it to 1 deliberate assist. Everything changes when channel choice is contextual. AI-assisted routing should weigh prior engagement and current constraints. If email is capped but SMS is allowed and consented, send 1 SMS once. If both are denied, create an agent task with SLA and policy context. Prefer proof over volume. We install breaks, debounce triggers, ignore refirings within a defined interval for the same hash. Shield against self-writes, add predicates, modified by our journey service principle, and write to shadow fields where possible. Enforce cooling. Stamp participation with entered at and expires at. Exit with cooling active when within the window. We harden retries, respect service protection headers, use exponential back-off 5, 15, 45 minutes after final failure, pivot to lawful alternate or route to a human. Every attempt logs under the same item potency key. No floods, no guesswork. We centralize suppression. 1 hierarchy, 1 right of way. Risk and recovery outrank promotion. Transactional outranks commercial. Human routed outranks broadcast. Caps enforce order, not luck. We add loop breakers. If n evaluations for the same key occur within t minutes, pause the trigger, halt the journey, and page on call with a diagnostic bundle, last payload, last actions, policy outcomes. Warnings are not protection. Stops are. Still the unanswered question. When should a sprinter stop? When the evidence says enough or unlawful. Encode stop tiles, on goal, on conflict, on error, with fallback, hold, retry later, or escalate. No indefinite loops. No hope waits. In the end, the profile holds. Precise with guardrails, dangerous without them. Speed needs brakes, evidence, and a single truth before it moves. Motive. Why triggers are the new gold. Every configuration tells a story. Triggers tell motive. They convert raw motion into a lawful decision on time with proof. Without them, the scene dissolves into lists and guesses. With them, a journey gets a heartbeat you can measure. Timing is currency. Heat decays by the minute. A cart worth 900 at 112 isn't the same at 207. Triggers protect the moment. They act while the window is open, not after. Context is law. A trigger doesn't just see an event. It reads the state around it. Identity resolved, consent lattice with precedence, caps with remaining budget and timestamps, suppression conflicts. Then it acts once on the permitted channel, not louder, smarter. Identity is continuity. A precise trigger binds anonymous motion to a person when claims align. Same device. Auth cookie, CRM link. That continuity carries forward. If escalation moves to a human, the same facts are visible. The narrative is intact. The evidence suggests 3 canonical case types with clear fingerprints. Abandoned cart, add to cart above threshold, dwell over 60 seconds, no purchase, consent allowed, cap open. Churn risk, score delta, crosses a configured boundary within a time window, usage down, fresh negative sentiment. CSAT failure, 1 star at midnight, priority tier, no recent remediation. Each becomes a guarded trigger. Each guarded trigger creates an auditable decision. Now this is important because triggers coordinate. They don't just fire, they orchestrate. Channel choice, variant selection, suppression respect, escalation path. A good trigger routes to email when lawful, pivots to SMS when caps block, opens an agent task when both deny, always under the same idempotency key. One case, one hash, one story. Guardrails convert speed into safety. Cooling windows prevent thrash. Idempotency keys collapse duplicates and make retries safe. Re-entry rules demand escalation. Higher cart value, bigger delta, fresh failure before a second pass. Suppression centralizes. Caps enforce a right of way. Risk outranks promotion. Transactional outranks commercial. Human routed outranks broadcast. Most people think triggers are switches. On or off, the timelines revealed something else. They're agreements. Threshold triggers set a line. Delta triggers capture motion. Composite triggers require a set, value and dwell and consent true. Consent-gated triggers resolve law first. No action until the lattice returns allowed. When the agreement is explicit, behavior is consistent. To trace the artifacts of gold, follow the chain. Trigger evaluation, a record with an ID and a fingerprint. Who, what, when, with which attributes, and a verdict. Guardrail artifact, consent verdict with precedence path, frequency cap state, suppression hits, and re-entry eligibility captured together. Action record, channel template, message IDs, provider response, and a back-off plan, all bound to the idempotency key. Exit record, goal met, time expired, policy denied, declined, reason codes included. Fabric binds them, the lab reconstructs motive and method, not a dashboard, evidence. Compare that to silence. No trigger means no evaluation. No evaluation means no reason. An outcome, if any, stands alone. When challenged, you have stories, not proof. Courts don't accept should have fired. They accept entered at T with fingerprint F, allowed by policy path P, action A at T+1, goal at T+42. Cost matters. Every API call is a spend. Every cent burns budget. Without precise triggers, caps blunt the wrong edge. Loud journeys win lottery slots. Urgent ones miss. Gold triggers conserve. Fewer calls, fewer retries, higher saves. The ledger shows intent converted, not throttled. There's operational weight here. Triggers are portable. The same fingerprint can drive an email, an SMS, a push, or an agent task, each under law. They're scarce. Good fingerprints require domain knowledge and data discipline. They're durable. Once proven, they survive platform shifts. UI changes, reorgs, the agreement outlives the interface. Microstory. A team retired a weekly all-abandoners blast. They authored one guarded cart trigger. Cart total, 200, dwell, 60, no purchase within 20 minutes. Consent lattice allowed, cap open. If email denied and SMS allowed, send one SMS. If both denied, open an agent task with SLA. Item potency keyed to contact plus cart. Volume dropped 60%. Conversions rose. Complaints fell. Lineage turned arguments into a case file. Everything changes when triggers become the unit of work. Segments become pools, not engines. Journeys become choreography, not funnels. Humans become exception handlers, not dispatchers. The deputy drafts and simulates. The lab proves. The enforcer retries under back-off. The profiler resolves identity. Separation of roles. One chain. Now the unanswered question. Why call them gold? Because when a trigger is authored correctly, it mints value on contact. Not speculation, value. A lawful, timely intervention that you can show, explain, and repeat. Because the absence of a trigger is what killed the case we just examined. And because in this environment only evidence spends, so we set the standard. No journey publishes without a trigger evaluation record defined and monitored. No channel tile activates without a lattice verdict cached for the window. No action leaves without an ITEM potency key. No exit closes without reason codes. Simulate before activation, page on silence. Prioritize risk over noise. In the end, motive is simple. Act only when the evidence says now. Encode it as a trigger. Guard it with breaks. Prove it with lineage. That's gold. Case file 01. The abandoned cart that bled out. Case file 1. The scene holds heat, then cools. Evidence begins on the customer insights timeline 1/12/7. Add to cart. SKU 8843. Category Pro. Cart total 942.14. 1/12/41. Shipping estimator viewed. Country and postal recorded. 1/13/09. Discount field focused. No apply. 1/13/36. Add to cart again. Same SKU. Quantity now 2. Cart total 184.28. Dwell crosses 90 seconds. Identity authenticated. Device fingerprint stable. Consent flags. Email allowed true. SMS allowed true. Caps clear. The fingerprint fits motive. This should move. We pivot to the authored trigger. Abandoned cart v2. Conditions listed. Cart exists. No purchase within 30 minutes. Cart value greater than. Authenticated. The threshold field for cart value greater than. Empty. A hollow condition. It evaluates, exists, never tests value. A second guard, no recent outreach, points to a segment snapshot stamped at midnight. Not live, not aligned. The trigger waits for a number that doesn't exist. The guard never arrives. Power automate run history confirms silence. No flow instances between 112 and 120. No retries, no dead letters, no back-off schedules. We should see a trigger evaluation ID, an action attempt, a provider response. The page is blank where ink should be. Upon closer examination, consent resolution is absent from the journey path. The trigger checks the profile's email allowed flag. It never calls the consent lattice that merges person, brand, purpose, and region. In the policy store, a brand level block sits higher. Commercial email denied for brand B. Precedence resolves to denied. The orchestrator never asked. The channel would have blocked. A guarded design would pivot. There is no pivot. We check downstream health to rule out ghosts. Exchange, green. SMS provider, green. Push gateway, quiet. Frequency caps, unused. Suppression, no hits. Dashboards glow. They measure what would have happened if a decision existed. A polished gravestone for a message never created. Now we slow the frame. 114.02, page refresh. 114.27, scroll depth 90%. 115.10, session idle starts. 116.01, session idle continues. No email, no SMS, no chat, no agent task. The window closes, the body cools. The contradiction deserves a beat. Profile allows, policy denies, parallel truths, no reconciliation step. The orchestrator believes go. The enforcer returns stop. No branch handles stop. The moment ends in nothing. Root cause sits in configuration. A missing cart value threshold and no consent lattice call. Secondary cause. A stale segment used as suppressor for no recent outreach. Masking eligibility in the moment. Tertiary. No idempotency design. Contact plus cart hash. So even a successful fire could duplicate on refresh. The chain didn't break. It never formed. Microstory. A product manager asked why abandonment emails dropped to 0 while cart volume rose. Deliverability dashboards clean. SMS healthy. Truth lived in 2 boxes. An empty threshold. A missing policy resolution. No alerts flagged. 0 trigger evaluations. Silence passed as stability. We prescribe a fix, artifact by artifact. First, author the guarded fingerprint explicitly, cart value at 200. Dwell, 60 seconds. No, purchase within 20 minutes. Authenticated. Consent lattice allowed, cap open. Each evaluation logs with a unique hash, contact ID plus cart ID plus T. Proof begins there. Second, enforce the consent lattice as a first-class guardrail. Resolve person, brand, purpose, region. Return allowed, denied, or conditional with a precedence path. If email denied and SMS allowed, branch to SMS once. If both denied, open an agent task with SLA, attach policy context, and a compliant permission-needed script. Orchestration must model red lights. Third, implement exponential back-off on transient sends, 5, 15, 45 minutes. After final failure, pivot to alternate channel under consent or create a human case. All attempts bind to the same ITEM potency key. Duplicates collapse. Noise drops. Fourth, add pre-flight. Add publish. Run a policy simulator across the intended cohort. 30% blocked by brand policy should block activation or require a waiver. At runtime, presend checks cache lattice and cap state for the decision window. If denied, exit with policy denied. Not a failure, a recorded verdict. Fifth, monitor for absence. Fabric job compares eligible cart events to trigger evaluations. Alert on divergence. Add a 0 evaluations for active journey over n minutes monitor. Page on silence. We finalize exits. Goal, purchase event closes the case. Time, 24 hours without activity. After timeout, send one soft follow-up or log no response and close. No drift, no pursuit beyond the window. We bind lineage in the lab. Fabric stores the evaluation payload, guardrail verdicts, action choice, provider response, retries, and exit reason under the same hash. Investigations become reading, not guessing. We add human safety. If all channels are denied, route an adaptive card to the accountable owner with severity, SLA, context, and policy notes. Buttons, acknowledge, call, reassign. Responses write to dataverse. The manual step inherits the same lattice and ITEM potency key. No improvisation outside the law. One more test, self-write shielding. If the journey sets last contacted, ensure triggers exclude updates modified by equals journey service principle. No echoes, no loops. Control lives and small predicates. Quote the finding. The cart didn't fail. The chain did. In the end, this isn't about an email that never left. It's about missing structure, a complete fingerprint, a consent lattice with precedence, idempotency on actions, back off on failure, monitors for absence, lineage that proves motive and method. With those in place, the same cart would have met one lawful move on time with proof. Case file 02. The churn risk nobody heard. Case file 2. The room is dim. The screen glow is enough. At 1802, the churn score steps up. Clean, sharp, undeniable. Evidence begins in customer insights. Profile timeline shows motion, not drift. Score moves from the 49 to toxin 61 in 47 minutes. Usage drops below baseline. A negative support verbatim lands with low sentiment. An invoice reminder opened. No follow-through. 3 signals converge. The fingerprint reads risk. We trace the chain we should see. Trigger evaluation on Delta. Guardrail pass. Action. Instead, quiet. Fabric lineage is empty. No evaluation ID. No guardrail artifact. No Teams alert. No task. No message. The line climbs. The room stays silent. Upon closer examination, guardrails were green. Consent lattice returns allowed for email and SMS. Frequency caps show open slots. Suppression lists, no hits. Nothing blocked this case. Still, no move. We pivot to the trigger library. Churn score updated, active. Activation, on update. Condition, absolute value, 65. The event didn't cross, 65. It jumped 0.12 from 49 to 0.61 in an hour. Velocity, not altitude. The evidence suggests the system listened for position and ignored acceleration. Pause. Risk announces itself as motion, not state. We inspect alerting. A Power Automate flow exists to notify sellers on high risk. Run history is sparse. Nothing at 1802. Nothing at 1803. One manual run at 0912 the next day. An analyst pressed reprocess. The team's post lands in a general channel with 219 members. No tag, no severity, no timer. The message reads like a memo, not a case. Now, this is important because CAPs don't understand motive. At 1804, a promo journey attempts an email. The CAP engine blocks it. Daily limit reached. The urgent path is silent. The promo is loud. Order wins. Urgency loses. Control without priority is random fairness. We check ownership. The account has a named seller. No task on their board. No SLA for churn. No after-hours duty. The system recorded a risk and assigned it to nobody. The customer cancels at 1911. Microstory. The cancellation note cites complexity and no response. The profile shows a self-service article opened at 1806. The article carries a poor rating. No chat offered. The widget muted by CAP after a prior send. The person asked quietly. The system stayed quiet. Root cause, no delta trigger. Absolute threshold only. Secondary, CAP engine has no risk priority override. Tertiary, alert routed to the crowd, not the owner. Quaternary, no composite corroboration. No rule demanding delta plus usage, drop plus negative sentiment. We test for ghosts. Delivery systems green. Connectors healthy. No 429s, no throttles. The failure is not infrastructure. Its design corrective action must turn motion into motive. First, author a delta trigger. Churn score delta, 0.10 within 60 minutes or score crosses. 60 with delta at 0.5. Encoded as composite include usage drop, 20% last 7 days, and recent negative sentiment. The combination narrows noise. Velocity plus corroboration equals credibility. Second, install a risk priority override in CAPs and suppression. When a risk trigger evaluates allowed on any channel, it reserves a slot for 24 hours. Promotional traffic yields. Policy remains intact. Order changes. Third, route to a person with a clock. Create an agent task with severity. High, SLA 15 minutes. Owner, account manager. Backup, duty manager. Include an adaptive card in Teams. Buttons. Acknowledge. Call now. Reassign. Start a 10-minute timer. On expiry, auto-escalate. Silence must page. Fourth, attach context. Case packet includes score history, usage graph, last support notes, and a recommended offer set. The deputy drafts the script. Tone, direct, respectful. No guesswork at the edge. Fifth, bind evidence. Fabric captures the delta trigger evaluation payload, guardrail outcomes, risk override applied, card acknowledgement timestamp, call outcome, and exit reason under same hash. The chain reads as one story. We install a channel plan. If email allowed and SMS allowed, choose based on prior engagement. If email opens are high but replies low, send one SMS, fast, short, lawful. If both denied, create the task only. If neither acknowledged within SLA, escalate to on-call retention with policy notes. Microstory. After implementing Delta Plus override, a similar case fired at 2041. One SMS preceded a seller call by 9 minutes. The reply read, "Can talk now." The call resolved a feature confusion and extended a trial. Cancellation avoided. Fabric lineage showed detection, decision, intervention, outcome. The chain held. Now the unanswered question. Why didn't analytics catch the miss? Because dashboards count actions, not absences. They show sends, opens, clicks, goal exits. They don't show eligible deltas with 0 evaluations. Silence needs its own graph, so we add monitors, If weekly churn risk deltas exceed N and trigger evaluations are N by 10%, alert operations. If cap priority overrides are requested and denied by configuration page owner, if after hours high severity cases reach 3 without acknowledgement, wake the duty manager. Absence becomes an event. We add discipline. Pre-flight simulator runs at publish. It replays historical weeks to estimate fire rate, cap conflicts, and block reasons. If predicted block rate exceeds tolerance, activation pauses. A waiver requires names. We encode stop rules on goal, retention call booked or usage restored within 7 days. Exit. On decline, no help needed. Exit. On silence, 24-hour window, 1 compliant follow-up, then exit. Restraint is part of control. Quote the finding. Risk accelerated. Nobody listened. In the end, this isn't about a model. It's about respect for motion. Triggers must read change. Caps must yield to urgency. Alerts must find owners with clocks. And every step must leave a trace that stands in the light. Case File 03. The deadly consent misconfiguration. Case File 3. The room is still. A permission that should open a door closes it. Evidence starts on the profile. Email allowed, true. SMS allowed, true. Purpose, commercial. Source, self-service form, renewed last month, fresh timestamp. At the person layer, the light is green. Upon closer examination, the brand layer contradicts. In the policy store, brand email blocked, true for brand B. Reason, historic complaint inherited at account level during a migration 2 years ago. Scope, brand, not global. Precedence, account, brand, person. The evidence suggests precedence is doing its job. Upstream of orchestration, the journey reads the profile flag. The channel enforcer reads the policy lattice. Parallel truths, no reconciliation step. The trigger sees allowed. The send engine returns denied. The orchestration never modeled red. We confirm with logs. Trigger evaluates clean. Entered it's true with fingerprint attributes. Email tile requests send. Exchange response. Recipient suppressed by policy. Error code recorded. No branch executes after the denial. No SMS pivot, no agent task. The path ends in a dead tile. Pause. Consent is the key. Precedence is the lock. This is important because consent with precedence is not a field. It's a lattice. Person, brand, purpose, region, sometimes channel and jurisdiction. If the journey doesn't resolve the lattice before it moves, it acts on myth. The enforcer applies law. The customer experiences silence. Teams believe they tried. We inspect tooling. A policy simulator exists elsewhere. It can evaluate for contact X, brand B, purpose commercial, region AU, is email permitted. It returns one truth and the precedence path. The journey never calls it. Assumption replaces resolution. Design flaw, not operator error. We test the blast radius. Fabric shows multiple policy-denied entries for the same cohort across the month. 0 alternate actions. No SMS attempts, no tasks. A template shipped with email or nothing. It handles throttles and bounces. It ignores law. That's configuration malpractice. We examine UAT, a marketer tested with a seed list under brand A, policy allowed. The send succeeded. In production, most targets live under brand B, denied. UAT proved local truth, not global law. Evidence was selective. Damage was broad. Now the unanswered question. Why didn't anyone notice? Because channel dashboards aggregate policy denials as a weekly metric. Journey analytics show drop at send tile, no cause classification by default. Nobody tied the charts together. Denial looked like deliverability noise, not a lattice omission. Root cause, no consent, lattice step in the journey's guardrails. Secondary, consent flags stored across planes without a single resolver. Tertiary, no channel fallback tree. Quaternary, no pre-flight simulator at published time. Errors discovered by impact, not design. Corrective action begins with a first-class consent resolver. One step, one verdict per channel, allowed, denied, conditional, with the exact precedence path. Inputs, person, brand, purpose, region, channel. Outputs cached for the decision window. Logged as a unified guardrail artifact alongside caps and suppression. Journeys must call this before the first tile, every time. Next, author the fallback tree. If email equals allowed, proceed. If email equals denied, and SMS equals allowed, send one SMS once under the same ITEM potency key. If both denied and push equals allowed, send push. If all channels denied, create an agent task with SLA and permission required context. Include a compliant outreach script to obtain preferences, no dead ends. Install preflight at publish. Run the intended cohort through the resolver across brands and regions. Surface conflicts. 30% denied by brand policy B102. Block activation or require a named waiver. Attach simulator results to change control. The deputy can draft. Humans approve. Add runtime preflight. Before the send tile, evaluate consent and caps. Cache the verdict. If denied, exit with reason. Policy denied. That's not a failure, it's a decision. Analytics can quantify lawful silence versus missing action. Operations can fix policy if wrong or respect it if right. Strengthen lineage. Fabric must bind the resolver's output to the action record. Email denied by brand policy B102 inherited from account A447, updated 2023-04-17. That is the explanation. It accelerates remediation. It satisfies audit. Guard against human workarounds. Add a policy check connector step in Power Automate before any manual send. Denial short circuit to the fallback tree. Manual cannot bypass law. Parity between automation and human action is non-negotiable. We add suppression harmony. Centralize global unsubscribes, brand blocks, and purpose preferences under one hierarchy consumed by journeys and flows. No shadow lists, no parallel truths. The lattice returns one answer everywhere. We test with a controlled replay. Same cohort, same moment. This time, the resolver runs. Email equals denied by brand. SMS equals allowed. Cap equals open. Suppression equals clear. The journey pivots to one SMS under ITEM potency keyed to contact plus case. If delivered, proof logs, message ID, and provider response. If the policy denies both, an adaptive card routes to the accountable owner with severity and SLA buttons. Acknowledge, call, reassign. Responses write back. The case inherits the same hash. One case, one story. Microstory. After implementing resolver and fallback, the cohort received a single SMS acknowledging preferences and offering a quiet path to update communications. Opt-ins rose, complaints fell, conversions held, the audit trail read clean, policy verdict, fallback action, outcome. We add monitors. Policy denied rate, X% on journey activation block. Policy denied with no fallback, page owner. Manual sends without policy check step, quarantine. Silence becomes a signal. Violations become incidents. We encode culture. Journeys refuse to publish without a consent lattice step. Templates refuse email or nothing. Change control includes simulator output. Owners sign waivers. Copilot flags collisions. Brand B denial predicted at 31%. Humans decide. Quote the finding. Permissions aren't paperwork, they're power. In the end, this wasn't a customer who wouldn't listen. It was a system that wouldn't ask. Resolve the lattice. Model red. Pivot lawfully. Leave a trail. Case file 04. The trigger loop. Mass casualty event. Case file 4. Motion too much of it. Actions multiply, then collide. Evidence starts in power automate. Run histories strobe. Instances seconds apart, then fractions. Connector calls spike. Queue depth climbs at 090311. CPU follows. The line looks like a sprint without breath. We pull the trigger definition. Activation, when contact is updated. Columns monitored, generic, any change. Downstream, the journey writes last contacted equals now as it moves. That write refires the trigger. The journey hears itself, entry again, then again. Round trip under 1 second. Upon closer examination, the logs align. Customer Insights marks rapid re-entries for the same participant key. No debounce, re-entry allowed by default. No ITEM potency key bound to the case. Each admission spawns fresh actions. The same contact receives multiple emails, multiple SMS attempts, multiple agent tasks. Echoes, not strategy. Exchange reports, 429s. Service protection throttles engage. The send step retrieves immediately. No exponential backoff. Soft bounces stack. Provider guidance says wait. The flow reads again. Capacity drains into a sink that the system dug for itself. We check suppression. One journey sets active in journey equals true. Another reads it for suppression. But the flag toggles with each loop, true, false, true, within seconds. Suppression gates misread flapping states. Journeys interrupt each other's breaks. The person becomes the intersection. Now this is important because loops don't look dramatic. They look fast, they feel like throughput, but speed without breaks is damage. The evidence suggests a mirror, self-writes reflecting triggers, amplified by missing idempotency and absent cooldowns. We verify loop detection. The platform raised a warning after 5 re-entries in 60 seconds. A banner, not a stop. An email summary lands after activation. In a storm, emails are post-mortems. Protection must halt, not hint. We isolate the blast radius. Fabric ties connector budgets to the timeline. API calls per minute breach safety bands. Unrelated journeys, quiet, lawful, miss their SLAs because shared capacity is consumed by the loop. Innocent paths suffer. Collateral damage is logged as timeout, microstory. A win-back path tried to avoid repeats by writing win-back attempted equals true. Trigger. Contact updated. Replication lag meant 2 parallel instances. Didn't see the flag in time. Each saw false, each sent an SMS. 2 messages land minutes apart. The customer replies, stop. Consent is lost, permanently and lawfully. A fix intended to reduce noise created a complaint. Root cause chain is short. Trigger listens to the same table it writes. No predicate to ignore self-writes. Re-entry allowed without escalation. No debounce window. No idempotency keys on actions. Retrieves immediate on throttle. Suppression flags flap without a minimum hold. Every gap multiplies the next. We prescribe breaks, explicit and measurable. First, shield triggers from mirrors. Add a condition. Modified by journey service principal. Where platform fields vary, use a tenant-wide service principal list. If uncertain, move writes to a shadow column not included in activation. Better, write outcomes to a separate table dedicated to lineage, not activation. Second, debounce. Compute a case hash, contact ID plus case type plus day. On evaluation, check for an entry in the last n minutes. If present, exit with cooling active. Log it. Don't send. Typical windows. 5 minutes for chat assists, 30 for nurture, 24 hours for retention calls. Fit the window to the motive. Third, enforce idempotency. Stamp the action with the same case hash. The enforcer must treat duplicates as already processed. No second email, no second task clone. Retries collapse into one record with multiple attempts. Fourth, hard loop breakers. If more than M evaluations for the same hash occur within T minutes, automatically pause the trigger, halt the journey and page on call. Provide a diagnostic bundle, last 5 payloads, last guardrail verdicts, last provider responses, recent modifications to the trigger. Operators need facts in one screen. Fifth, respectful backoff on 429 read provider headers. Back off with 5, 15, 45 minutes on repeated throttle, pivot under consent, alternate channel once, or create a human case. Each attempt binds to the same hash. No floods. Sixth, stabilize suppression. Set active in journey for a minimum interval, 10 minutes, then clear on exit with a small delay. Other journeys see a steady state. Collisions drop. Seventh, pre-flight simulation. Before publish, replay a slice of historical events. Count potential self-write echoes. If activation fields include those the journey writes, block activation or require a waiver. Copilot can flag self-write risk high. Humans decide with eyes open. We add monitors for absence and excess. Evaluations per hash, M in T minutes, pause and alert. 429 rate, X% for Y minutes. Throttle non-critical journeys. Reserve capacity for critical. Unrelated journey SLA misses correlated with loop spike, page owner. We encode culture. Templates refuse contact updated without a field filter. Journeys ship with cooldowns and re-entry rules authored, not implied. Actions require ITEM potency keys. Retry patterns are standard blocks, not hand-rolled per flow. Suppression hierarchy is centralized. Right-of-way, encoded. Risk outranks promo, transactional outranks commercial, human routed outranks broadcast. Micro-story. After deploying breaks, a similar loop attempted to form when a junior editor added status updated to a trigger. The simulator flagged self-write risk. Activation paused. The predicate, modified by, equals journey service principal, added. On go live, a throttle event hit exchange for unrelated reasons. One attempt, 1 15-minute back off, 1 pivot to SMS under consent, 1 agent task when both channels denied, no flood, no collateral, complaint rate fell, capacity graph smoothed to baseline. Now the unanswered question, why didn't we see it earlier? Because teams celebrated sends, not surges. They watched averages, not per case timelines. They treated warnings as noise. In a forensic environment, a strobe in run histories is a siren. It calls for breaks. Quote the finding. A loop is not a bug, it is a missing break. In the partnership, CI plus PA plus Fabric plus Copilot, the unit. Every save requires a unit. Profile, decide, act, then prove it. Customer Insights is the profiler. It holds identity and context in one spine. Contact, account, device, cookie, and claim resolved. Web events land with timestamps and attributes intact. Scores and anomalies attached to the person, not the browser. The profiler doesn't predict. It remembers precisely. It gives us the scene's facts. Upon closer examination, resolution is the quiet hinge. Anonymous becomes known when claims align. Login event, device fingerprint, email hash. The profile binds motion into continuity. A churn spike isn't a number in air. It's a step change on this person's timeline next to usage drops and verbatim sentiment. The evidence suggests profile resolution is not a luxury. It's the only way to stop guessing. Journeys inside customer insights are scene control. They decide when and how. Guarded triggers evaluate prints in order. Identity stable, consent lattice with precedence, suppression consulted, frequency caps applied, eligibility confirmed. Only then does the route open, email, SMS, push, agent task, or a call out. Each step declares intent, each step logs a verdict. Exits define endings. The choreographer ensures one lawful move, not a flurry. Power Automate is the enforcer. It carries out actions, handles retries, and executes compensations. A send fails, it reads headers and backs off, 5, 15, 45 minutes. The system returns transient errors. It schedules, it doesn't loop. It updates external records with authentication that leaves a trace. The enforcer respects ITEM potency keys. Already processed returns calmly. Nothing doubles, nothing floods. Fabric is the lab. It preserves logs and lineage under durable keys. Trigger evaluations ingest with fingerprints. Guardrail artifacts bind consent precedence paths and cap state. Actions arrive with provider responses and retry schedules. Exits carry reason codes. Fabric correlates the chain, event to decision to action to outcome. It also watches for absence. Eligible events with 0 evaluations, pages, operations. Silence becomes visible. Copilot is the deputy. It doesn't wear the badge. It carries the flashlight. It drafts tiles, simulates policies, and summarizes cases. It reads the profiler's timeline and proposes a succinct brief. Score jumped, usage dipped, consent allowed for SMS, cap open, risk outranks, promo. It flags collisions, 2 journeys contending for the same moment, and offers a suppression diff. The deputy accelerates cognition. Humans approve. Now this is important because roles slip under pressure. Profilers shouldn't decide timing. Scene control shouldn't improvise integration. Enforcers shouldn't invent context. Labs shouldn't guess motive. Deputies shouldn't publish. Separation keeps evidence clean. Integration gives speed. To trace the artifacts across the unit, follow a single hash. The profiler emits add to cart with attributes. Scene control evaluates the guarded trigger and records entered X true with hash H and guardrail verdicts. The enforcer receives an action request stamped H, attempts delivery, records provider response, and back off under H. The lab binds all of it, payloads, decisions, outcomes, under H. The deputy reads H and drafts an operator brief, 1 chain, 1 story. Cross-channel pressure tests the seams. The unit must respect a right-of-way. Risk and recovery outrank promotion. Transactional outranks commercial. Human-rooted outranks broadcast. Caps enforce order, not luck. Scene control encodes priority. The enforcer reserves a slot when priority is high. The lab reports preempted sends as a positive metric. The deputy warns when a promo will starve a retention path. Everyone sees the same law. Consent must be single source. The lattice resolves once per case window, person, brand, purpose, region, channel. Verdicts, allowed, denied, conditional, arrive with the precedence path. Scene control consumes it. The enforcer checks it. The lab stores it. The deputy simulates it at design time. No parallel truths. No email or nothing. We install governance. A pre-flight simulator runs at publish. It replays representative audiences across brands and regions. It projects evaluation rates, denials, cap conflicts, and contention. If predicted block rates exceed tolerance, activation pauses. Waivers require names. Change control attaches diffs, simulator results, and rollback plans. The deputy prepares the packet. Human sign. Microstory. A tenant replaced a patchwork of flows with the unit. The profiler unified contact and device. Journeys authored 1 composite cart trigger. Value 200. Dwell A60. No purchase in 20 minutes. Lattice allowed. Cap open. The enforcer sent 1 SMS when email denied, opened an agent task when both blocked, and respected ITEM potency on Contact Plus cart. The lab flagged 0 evaluations for 2 hours. Root cause, a service principal lost read on the trigger table. The deputy surfaced the permission gap and suggested a pre-flight check. Downtime, 5 minutes. Lost night avoided. Ownership locks the system. Data steward for the profiler. Journey owner for scene control. Automation engineer for the enforcer. Analytics owner for the lab. Experience lead for the deputy's prompts. A named operator on call with authority to pause triggers and journeys. Fast. Weekly case reviews show 3 chains end to end. Monthly policy simulations publish diffs and right-of-way adjustments. Still, the unanswered question, who stops the unit in a storm? The operator does, armed with loop breakers, budget guards, and policy gates that halt rather than warn. The lab provides the bundle. The deputy drafts the fix. Scene control encodes it. The profiler confirms identity. The enforcer resumes under evidence. In this environment, nothing is accidental. The unit isn't a diagram. It's discipline. Profile, decide, act, and prove it. Reenactment. Detect, decide, intervene. It begins with motion. Quiet, measurable, undeniable. On the profile timeline, a churn score steps up. 11 in 40 minutes. Usage slips below baseline. A fresh negative verbatim lands in support. 3 signals converge. The profiler stamps the moment with attributes intact. Detect initiates. Identity is resolved. Authenticated device. CRM contact. Account link verified. The case hash is derived. Contact ID plus risk case ID plus day. That hash becomes the spine. It will bind every decision, every attempt, every outcome. No duplicates. No drift. Scene control evaluates the guarded trigger in order. Consent lattice first, person, brand, purpose, region, verdicts return, email allowed, SMS allowed, push not enrolled, precedence path recorded, suppression next, no global hits, no custom lists, no journey contention, frequency caps, 1 email slot free today, 2 SMS slots free, weekly budgets intact. The risk priority override reserves a slot, promotional traffic yields. Eligibility confirms the composite, delta met, usage down, negative sentiment present. The trigger returns, enter, xt, true with the case hash. A full guardrail artifact is logged. Consent verdicts with precedence path, cap state with remaining budget and timestamps, suppression status, re-entry eligibility. Proof begins before action. Decision opens with channel choice. History shows emails opened, replies rare. SMS responses prompt on service notices. Goal is speed and clarity. The choreographer selects SMS, 1 message, not both. The idempotency key equals the case hash. Any retried attempt will collapse, not multiply. Content is assembled. Copilot drafts a concise retention SMS. Acknowledges friction, offers a 30-day feature extension, includes a secure scheduling link, and a direct reply option. Tone, direct, respectful. The policy simulator previews content under purpose and region. Green, scene control approves. The decision artifact binds template ID and rationale to the hash. Intervene begins. The enforcer receives the action request carrying the idempotency key. It posts the SMS via connector, records provider response, and registers a back-off plan, 5, 15, 45 minutes. Should the provider throttle? Delivered, message ID stored against the same key, no parallel sends, no echo attempts. In parallel, the enforcer opens an agent task. Severity, high. SLA, 15 minutes. Owner, account manager. Backup, duty manager. An adaptive card reaches the owner directly in Teams. Acknowledge, call now, reassign. The card carries context, score chart, usage graph, last support notes, consent verdicts, cap reservations, the exact SMS sent, and the secure link. A 10-minute timer starts. If no acknowledgement, auto-escalation triggers to backup with mobile push. Scene control sets exits. Goal exit. Retention, conversation booked, or usage restored above baseline within 7 days. Time exit, 24 hours without engagement. Then 1 compliant follow-up email if caps allow and consent holds. Decline exit. Explicit no help needed reply. Each exit will stamp a reason code. Caps protect the quiet until closure. The customer replies in minutes. 2 p.m. works. The enforcer captures the inbound event, links it to the same hash, and updates the agent task to acknowledged with a scheduled call. CAPS reserve silence across journeys for the next 4 hours. No nurture send interrupts, no promo competes. Right of way holds. At 1:58 p.m., the call proceeds. The owner follows the playbook from the card. Identity verified. Friction isolated. Feature path hidden after a UI change. A policy exception restores access for 30 days. A guided walkthrough resolves confusion. The enforcer logs outcome with a concise disposition code. Scene control marks a provisional goal met, pending usage recovery. Fabric ingests the chain as it happens. Event payloads, guardrail verdict, action details with provider response, card acknowledgement timestamps, call outcome, exit rationale, all under the same hash. The lab renders a compact lineage, detection inputs, decision rationale, intervention attempts and results, goal status, nothing inferred, everything stamped. Feedback closes the loop. A small usage uptick appears within 24 hours. Provisional becomes final. Scene control exits on goal with reason. Retention scheduled and restored. CAPS release the reserved slot. Preempted promo is counted as a positive metric. Noise avoided, not opportunity lost. The deputy proposes a small refinement. Friday afternoons show natural usage dips. Recommend raising the delta threshold by 0.2 during that window to reduce false positives. A simulator replays the last 4 Fridays across brands and regions. Predicted denials, cap conflicts, and fire rate are within tolerance. Change control attaches diffs and simulator results. Humans approve. Publish proceeds. Still, one unanswered question remains. What if consent had denied both channels? The same reenactment routes differently. The lattice returns denied, denied. The journey opens an agent task with permission required context, includes a compliant outreach script, and sets SLA. No illegal send. The case still moves, lawfully, with proof. Detect, decide, intervene, evidence at each step, or it didn't happen. True crime vignettes. 3 fast saves, 3 scenes, minimal facts, decisive moves, visible proof. First, the vanishing VIP. A lifetime value line dips, 1 step, not a slide. The profiler records a spend delta and a benefit usage drop. No complaint, no survey. Silence is the tell. Detect. A composite trigger watches tier, boss gold, 14-day spend below baseline. Benefit redemption down 30%. Consent lattice allowed for at least 1 channel. At 10:14, the fingerprint matches. Scene control logs. Enter ELA true with a case hash bound to contact plus tier plus day. Guardrails pass. Verdicts recorded with the precedence path, CAPS reserved. A nurture path is scheduled later. Risk priority preempts it now. Decide. Evidence says email is ignored. Human outreach gets a response within an hour. 3 times last quarter. The deputy drafts a concierge brief. Tenure acknowledged. Proactive tune-up offered. Direct scheduling link included. Channel choice favors human first, machine second. The enforcer opens an agent task. Severity high. SLA 10 minutes. Routes to the named concierge with backup on duty. 1 SMS is queued under the same ITEM potency key if the card isn't acknowledged by TPLOW8. Intervene. The card pings the owner directly. Acknowledge, call now, reassign. Acknowledged at TPLO 90 seconds. Call placed at TPLO 4 minutes. Root cause. A benefit hidden behind a fresh UI change. The concierge restores the shortcut, applies a one-time upgrade, bookmarks the fix to the profile, and confirms by email. The profiler writes each artifact. Scene control exits on goal. Concierge call completed, benefits restored. Fabric binds lineage, trigger to guardrail to human action to outcome. Spend rebounds a week later, the trail is clean. Second, the pricing page stalker. Off hours, enterprise pricing page, 5 visits in 30 minutes. Scroll depth 100%, no form, no chat. The profiler associates device to a known lead, domain match, prior webinar. Identity resolves, heat is present, detect. Trigger listens for page family equals pricing, repeat, gives 3 in 30 minutes, dwell 120 seconds. Consent lattice returns, allowed for at least one channel. At 21:47, conditions lock. Guardrails pass. Commercial email allowed. SMS unknown. Push absent. Caps won't interfere. Priority medium high. Decide. Pattern shows calendar links convert when sent by a human. Broadcast emails alone stall. The deputy proposes a two-step. Notify seller with a one-click outreach card. Send a single transactional tone confirmation email as a receipt. Scene control approves. The enforcer creates a seller task, SLA 15 minutes. Routes to account owner with backup. The email is idempotent, contact plus page plus hour. Duplicates collapse, intervene. The seller taps send quick note on the adaptive card. Context pre-filled, Calendly link attached. Then clicks call now. Voicemail lands, the email arrives within a minute. The prospect clicks the calendar at 21:53 and books for Euro 9 kwok. The profiler captures the click and booking. Scene control suppresses all nurture sends until after the call. Fabric links the chain. No extra messages, no collisions. The next day, the demo converts to an opportunity. The save is attributed to the case hash. Third, the cry for help. Or 11, 1-star CSAT, verbatim, can't access invoices. Tried support, gave up. The profiler pins it to contact in case, priority account, after hours, high risk, detect. Composite trigger, CSAT equals 1 star, negative sentiment, tier so, standard, no recent remediation. Guardrails run consent, allowed for email and SMS, caps open, suppression clear. Priority escalates. Promo sends are preempted by right of way. Decide. Best channel now is SMS, fast and quiet. The deputy drafts a micro apology with a secure link to restore access, plus an option to connect with an on-call specialist. The enforcer sends one SMS under an ITEM potency key. Contact plus case plus day. In parallel, it opens an on-call task, severity critical, SLA 10 minutes, with escalation at 5. A Teams card reaches the duty manager's phone. Acknowledge call, reassign. Context attached. Last support notes, lattice verdicts, cap reservation, the exact SMS content. Intervene. Acknowledged at T+3, identity verified, access restored. The customer replies, works now, thanks. The enforcer marks the task complete. Scene control exits on goal. Issue resolved. Caps enforce a 24-hour quiet window across journeys. A transactional follow-up email at 0805 confirms the fix and offers a short survey and a direct line if anything regresses. The profiler records improved sentiment. Fabric preserves the midnight lineage with timestamps intact. The promo is rescheduled, not lost. Shared mechanics bind the 3 saves. Each begins with a fingerprint, precise, lawful, time-boxed. Each passes a unified guardrail. Consent lattice with precedence. Caps with reserved slots. Suppression in one hierarchy. Each chooses a channel or a human with a single idempotency key. One case, one story. Each sets explicit exits tied to goals with reason codes. Each writes evidence as it happens. Evaluation payload, verdicts, actions, outcomes. One more lesson sits underneath. Restraint. In every vignette, non-urgent journeys yield. Caps enforce right of way. Risk and recovery outrank promotion. That line isn't flavor. It's policy. Written, simulated, enforced. And silence is not accidental anymore. If an expected evaluation doesn't appear, the lab page is on absence. If policy denies and no fallback exists, the owner is paged. If loops form, breaks halt, not warn. The system treats quiet as an event, not a shrug. Minimal facts, fast action, clean exits, visible proof. That's a living journey, seen in 3 short scenes that left a trail. Old forensic notes. How to implement. Every environment is different. The protocol is not evidence first, action second. Start with focus zones. Target 3 that bleed most. Abandonment, churn, negative feedback. For abandonment, watch high-value carts and onboarding stalls. For churn, combine motion with corroboration. Score deltas plus usage drops plus fresh frustration. For negative feedback, prioritize 1-star CSAT after hours. Treat each as a case type, not a theme. Define fingerprints, write them like procedures. Identity source, event name, required attributes, recency window, threshold or delta, consent precondition, owner, assign a fingerprint ID. That ID anchors lineage across systems. Replace cart with cart /x and dwell /y and no purchase =z. Replace churn with delta A and B minutes with usage down and negative sentiment. Replace CSAT with 1-star from TOL standard after hours. Install the consent lattice. Build a resolver that takes person, brand, purpose, region, channel, and returns allowed, denied, conditional with a precedence path. Cache per case window. Log its verdict with consent source notes. Without a lattice, consent is folklore. With it, law becomes code. Pre-flight is non-negotiable. At publish, simulate the intended audience across brands and regions. Surface predicted denials, cap conflicts, and contention. If block rates exceed tolerance, pause activation, or require a named waiver, attach results to change control. The deputy drafts, human sign, add guardrails. Cooling periods at entry and around sends, fit the window to motive. Re-entry rules, once per window or only on severity escalation. ITEM potency keys, derive per person, per case, per window. Stamp them through journeys and flows. Predicates on triggers, ignore self-rights, modified by. ITDOS, journey service principle, stabilize suppression, minimum holds, delayed clears, one hierarchy, instrument actions. Use adaptive cards for human assists. Fields, severity, SLA, owner, backup, context, timeline, scores, consent verdicts, cap state, the last message sent. Buttons, acknowledge, call now, reassign. All choices write to Dataverse at click. Notes are captured in line. Evidence is created as action, not memory. Route alerts to an owner with a clock, not a channel. Severity rules define SLA and escalation. Acknowledge within minutes or auto-escalate to backup or on-call. Silence pages, cases close with disposition codes, chat logs, and call outcomes bind to the case hash. Harden the enforcer. Add exponential backoff on all channel connectors, 5, 15, 45 minutes, and read provider headers. On final failure, pivot to lawful alternate or open a task. Treat identical requests with the same ITEM potency key as already processed. Collapse duplicates, no floods. Centralize frequency caps and right-of-way. Risk and recovery outrank promotion. Transactional outranks, commercial. Human routed outranks, broadcast. Caps reserve slots for urgent paths. Promos borrow leftovers. Preempted promotional sends are counted as success. Noise avoided, not volume lost. Consolidate automations. Fewer, stronger journeys with shared guardrails. Merge overlapping flows into a single scene control per moment. Author triggers centrally, publish suppression precedence, allocate connector budgets as policy, publish an inventory, retire anything that cannot show lineage from trigger to outcome, wire the lab, draft schema contracts for events, guardrail artifacts, actions and exits. Enforce field presence, types, enums, and time normalization. Quarantine violations with reason codes. Ingest into Fabric with linkages on fingerprint and ITEM potency keys. Build monitors for absence and excess. Eligible events with zero evaluations. Policy denials without fallback. Evaluations per hash exceeding thresholds. 429 spikes without back off. Set cadence. Weekly case review shows 3 chains end to end. A save, a silence detected, a failure handled. Approve 1 small fix, raise a delta threshold, lengthen a cooling window, add a fallback. Monthly, run the policy simulator and contention tests. Publish diffs and right-of-way updates. Require waivers for exceptions. Govern access. Lease privilege for service principals. Monitors that page on permission revocations, loss of read on trigger tables, send connectors or policy stores. Include a pre-flight permission check at publish. Downtime should be minutes with a page, never a mystery. Protect against loops. Pre-flight checks for self-write risk. Debounce evaluations by case hash. Loop breakers that pause journeys after M evaluations in T minutes and page on call with a diagnostic bundle. Last payloads, verdicts, provider responses, recent diffs. Warnings aren't protection, pauses are. Pilot before scale, 1 fingerprint per zone. Simulate on historical weeks, estimate fire rate, block rate, cap conflicts, fallback volume. Launch under observation for 2 weeks. Review every case. Tune thresholds. Validate ITEM potency, cooling, re-entry, and alert routing. Only then expand. Measure what matters. Elevate goal exits, preempted promos, lawful denials with fallbacks, and silences detected and resolved. De-emphasize raw sends. Track messages avoided as a success metric. Precision beats volume. Final details. Add a hold and ask tile for consent acquisition when all channels deny. Add stop on conflict tiles when guardrails disagree. Include on error exits with retry or escalate. Stamp reason codes everywhere. Entered, policy denied, cap reserved, already processed, cooling active, goal met, declined, time expired. Reason codes make narratives readable. In this environment, nothing is accidental. Map fingerprints, resolve consent, install breaks, route to owners, prove lineage, simulate before publish, page on silence, less on purpose, then run, pitfalls, classic case breakers. Every tenant hides the same fractures, different logos, same failures. We treat each as a case breaker. Evidence, implication, unanswered question, then prescription. Bad data first. The artifact, wrong joins, and schema drift. A cart event lands without a contact ID. Someone helps by joining on email. Casing differs. Identity splits. Dates log in local time. Comparisons run in UTC. Recency lies. Enumerations extend in one app but not another. Values fall to unknown. The implication is blunt. Triggers read fiction. Journeys act on ghosts. The unanswered question, save who? The prescription is a contract. Author schema contracts for events and decision artifacts. Enforce field presence types, allowed enums, and time normalization. Quarantine violations with a reason code. Don't let bad data in. Don't let it spread. Fabric ingests only what passes. Failures become incidents, not surprises. Trigger loops next. The artifact. Echo conditions and self-writes. A journey updates last contacted. The trigger listens to contact updated. The mirror forms. Round trips in under a second. The implication. Acceleration without control. Capacity spikes. 429s. Parallel sends. Consent loss. The unanswered question. Why didn't brakes engage? The prescription is mechanical. Add predicates. Modified by journey service principle. Write outcomes to shadow columns or a separate lineage table. Install debounce windows by case hash. Stamp ITEM potency keys, so duplicates return already processed. Add hard loop breakers. If evaluations per hash exceed a threshold in minutes, pause and page on call with a diagnostic bundle. Missing error handling. Quiet, deadly. The artifact. Connectors return transient faults. Flows retry instantly. Logs mark succeeded at the parent step. Nothing delivered. Everything green. The implication. False confidence and invisible loss. The unanswered question. Why didn't we pivot? The prescription. Explicit try/catch in the enforcer. Record attempt, classify cause, schedule exponential backoff 5, 15, 45 minutes. After final failure, pivot under consent to an alternate channel or create a human task with context. Maintain a dead letter queue with owners, SLAs, and closure codes. Build monitors for absence. Eligible events with 0 evaluations. Send attempts with 0 deliveries. 429 spikes without backoff. Failing loudly beats failing quietly. Over automation. Looks sophisticated. Behaves fragmented. The artifact. Too many flows competing for the same signal. No suppression precedence. No budget policy. The implication. Caps reward the first to shout, not the urgent. API wallets drain on background noise. A churn intervention waits behind a newsletter. The unanswered question. Who owns this moment? The prescription is consolidation. Fewer, stronger journeys with shared guardrails. Centralize suppression and frequency caps with right-of-way. Risk and recovery outrank promotion. Transactional outranks commercial. Human-routed outranks broadcast. Allocate connector budgets as policy. Reserve capacity for critical paths. Promos borrow what's left. Install a contention simulator at publish. If 2 journeys contend for the same fingerprint, force a decision and log the rule. No governance, drift masquerading as speed. The artifact, personal environment flows, broad permissions, Friday night fixes. Monday's audit finds nothing because there's nothing to find. The implication, folklore, replaces evidence. The unanswered question, who approved this? The prescription, roles and change control. Name stewards for profiler, scene control, enforcer, lab deputy. Require pull requests for journey edits. Attach simulator results and rollback plans. Capture diffs. Enforce least privilege for service principals. Run an inventory job weekly. Discover flows, connectors, triggers, tag owners, quarantine unknowns. Page. When a permission revokes access to trigger tables, send connectors or policy stores. 2 cross-cutting traps deserve a hard light. Testing on seed lists under the wrong policy universe. UAT green in brand A says nothing about brand B's inherited blocks. Always pre-flight against production-like samples by brand, purpose, region. And analytics that celebrate, sends instead of saves. Elevate goal exits, preempted promos, lawful denials with fallbacks, and silences detected. Resolved within cell A. Count messages avoided as success. Precision beats volume. Microstory. A tenant blamed deliverability after a dip. The lab showed 0 trigger evaluations while cart events surged. Root cause. A service principal lost red on the trigger table. No monitor for permission revoked. After adding access checks to pre-flight and a fabric alert on access loss, the same failure became a 5-minute page, not a weekend. Unanswered questions become controls. Did the data conform? Contracts and quarantine. Did triggers refire themselves? Predicates debounce. Loop breakers. Did errors pivot? Back off, alternates, dead letters. Who owns contention? Simulator and right-of-way. Who changed what? Diffs and waivers. In this environment, nothing is accidental. Bad data, loops, silence, noise, and drift aren't surprises. They're what happens without contracts, breaks, back-offs, consolidation, and governance. Install the guardrails before the sprint, then run. The twist. Over-automation kills journeys. It looks like sophistication. It behaves like fragmentation. Too many flows tug at the same intent. Triggers multiply. Owners diverge. The customer becomes a rope, pulled, not served. The logs show strain, not progress. The evidence suggests a pattern. An onboarding journey, a promotion, a win-back, and a quick-fix flow, each built just for this moment. None share suppression precedence. None reserve capacity. The platform executes until it can't. Branching complexity creates timing gaps. Forks query different stores with different freshness. One branch reads profile consent from cache, allowed. Another resolves precedence live, denied. A third times out, defaults to unknown. Outcomes diverge because clocks disagree. Race conditions aren't drama, they're drift. Caps try to help. They reward order, not motive. The first send wins the slot. The urgent intervention arrives late or not at all. Loud beats, right? Then the budget. Every connector call spends from a shared wallet. Over-automation burns it in the background. 429s rise. Red trees stack. Latency spreads. Journeys built to be fast become late by design. Most people think more automations mean more control. The timelines reveal the inverse. More automations, less ownership. A signal crosses a line. Which flow owns it? If the answer is, it depends, you already lost the case. Upon closer examination, silent failures hide in the thicket. A narrow branch fails quietly. 8% of cases vanish. Another flow's re-entry guard keys on its own IDs, ignores the shared case identity. Two paths act, each correct in isolation, wrong in aggregate. The inbox records the collision. Implication is severe. Intent splits across channels. Email pauses for cap. SMS fires from an unaware journey. Push never arrives. Dead token unpruned. An agent task appears with no SLA. The SLA step lives in a disabled solution. Fragmentation is visible as mismatched timestamps and orphaned tasks. The unanswered question, who owns the moment? Prescription must be blunt. Fewer, stronger automations, owned, governed, evidenced. Consolidate journeys that touch the same moments into one scene control with a published suppression hierarchy. Author triggers centrally. Encode right of way, risk, and recovery outrank promotion. Transactional outranks commercial. Human-rooted outranks broadcast. Reserve cap slots for urgent paths. Promos borrow leftovers. Install a contention simulator. Before publish, replay representative events. If two journeys contend for the same fingerprint, force a decision. Which acts, which yields, what fallback applies. Log the rule. Attach it to change control. Bind ITEM potency at the case level. One key across CI, Power Automate, and external systems. Identical requests return already processed. Redundancy dies on contact. Retire the unprovable. Any flow that can't show lineage from trigger to outcome pauses until it can. Any journey that fails pre-flight policy simulation remains blocked or requires a named waiver. Velocity returns when evidence returns. Add budget guards. When connector consumption nears limit, throttle non-critical sends and reserve capacity for risk paths. Report preempted promos as a positive metric, noise avoided. Govern roles, one owner per moment. Weekly case review surfaces collisions and retires duplicative logic. The lab monitors for silence and surge. The deputy flags overlaps before they compile. Scene control encodes the fix. You didn't lose control. You never had it until you chose less on purpose. And the verdict. Who killed the customer journey? It wasn't a single hand. It was a conspiracy. of silence and fragmentation. The evidence points to one pattern: the chain never formed. Triggers didn't evaluate, guardrails weren't present, orchestration assumed green, enforcement applied red. No branch reconciled the conflict. The moment ended in nothing, and nothing leaves no proof. Upon closer examination, silence did the heavy lifting. An empty threshold box, an absolute trigger where a delta belonged, a consent lattice never called, a loop without breaks, not spectacular failures. Absences. Dashboards glowed. They measured what would have happened if a decision existed, a polished gravestone for messages never created. Still, fragmentation finished the job. Over-automation split intent across uncoordinated flows. Competing journeys without suppression precedence, caps that rewarded the first to shout, not the most urgent. Connector budgets drained by background noise, right of way undefined, ownership diluted. A signal crossed a line. The answer to who owns this moment was "it depends," which is another way to say nobody. So, who killed the journey? The historian arrived late, static segments comforted with counts while moments cooled. The witness blinked, manual steps without clocks, proof, or escalation. The sprinter ran without brakes. Real-time paths misfiring, looping, and colliding. Each suspect played a part, but the cause of death remains singular. Lack of control. Tools without discipline, speed without proof. The implication is stark. Without a verifiable evidence chain, you cannot claim intent was recognized, consent was respected, or action was lawful. If you can't reconstruct the decision, you can't learn from it. If you can't learn from it, you repeat it, quietly, expensively, endlessly. The unanswered question is practical. What restores life to a journey? The answer is a unit and a law. The unit you've seen work. Customer insights as the profiler, journeys as scene control, power automate as the enforcer, fabric as the lab, copilot as the deputy, profile, decide, act, then prove it. Each role does its job, none freelances. Separation keeps evidence clean. Integration gives speed. The law is simple. Real-time decisions must rest on a verifiable chain. A guarded trigger evaluation with a fingerprint and timestamp. Identity resolved. Conditions met. A unified guardrail verdict. Consent lattice with precedence. Caps state with reservation. Suppression status. Re-entry eligibility. Logged together. An action stamped with an ITEM potency key. Provider response recorded. Retries scheduled with exponential back-off. Alternates or manual escalations chosen lawfully. An exit reason tied to an explicit goal. Purchase, retention, resolution, or respectful decline with reason codes. If any link is missing, the decision is noise. If every link is present, the save is defensible. From here, discipline replaces drama. Author fingerprints, not themes. Precision beats volume. Resolve consent once, person, brand, purpose, region, channel, and bind the precedence path to the case. Install breaks, predicates against self-rights, cooling windows, re-entry rules, idempotency keys, respectful back-off, encode right-of-way, risk and recovery outrank promotion, transactional outranks commercial, human routed outranks broadcast, caps reserve slots for urgent paths, promos, borrow leftovers. Consolidate automations, fewer, stronger journeys with shared guardrails, and published suppression precedents. Retire anything that can't show lineage from trigger to outcome. Monitor for absence and excess. Eligible events with zero evaluations. Policy denials without fallback. Evaluations per case exceeding thresholds. 429 spikes without back-off, permission revocations on service principles, page on silence, Pause on surge. Govern changes. Pre-flight simulators at design and publish. Policy and contention tests across brands and regions. Diffs and waivers attached to every activation. Least privilege enforced. Inventory jobs that find and quarantine the unknown. Cadence turns this law into muscle memory. Weekly case reviews show 3 chains, end to end. 1 save, 1 silence detected, 1 failure handled. Fix something small, threshold up. 02, cooling window extended, fallback added. Monthly simulations publish right-of-way adjustments. Named owners sign waivers. A duty operator holds authority to halt loops, guard budgets, and pause journeys fast. The verdict, written plainly. The customer journey died from lack of control, not lack of technology. The suspects, static segments, manual processes, misconfigured real-time paths were present. The scene made them lethal by removing breaks, skipping proof, and rewarding volume. This is not a mystery that returns. It's a discipline you can choose. Build the lattice, guard the triggers, prove the chain, simulate before publish, page on silence, consolidate the noise, name owners with clocks. Because in this environment, nothing is accidental. A living journey always leaves a trail, and a living system insists on it. The forensic playbook, 6-step audit. Every case that lives can be audited. Evidence first, action second, 6 steps, each leaves a trace. Step 1, map intents to triggers. List the moments that matter in your tenant: abandonment, churn, negative feedback, VIP drift, pricing page heat, onboarding stalls. For each, write the fingerprint like a procedure, not a theme. Identity source, event name, required attributes, recency window, threshold or delta, consent precondition, owner. Assign a fingerprint ID that will anchor lineage. The evidence suggests most misses start here. Unwritten fingerprints create invisible cases. Replace cart with cart or X and dwell in Y and no purchase, ALZ. Replace churn with delta, A in B minutes plus usage down plus negative sentiment. Replace CSAT with 1 star from tier, standard after hours. Precision narrows noise. Step 2, validate the consent lattice. Resolve law as code once, upfront. Build or centralize a resolver that takes person, brand, purpose, region, and channel. Return 1 verdict per channel. Allowed, denied, conditional with the precedence path. Cache the output for the decision window. Bind it to the fingerprint ID with source nodes. Then simulate. Run representative audiences by brand and region through the lattice. Record block rates and reasons. The implication is simple. Without a lattice, consent is folklore. With it, enforcement matches orchestration. 2 habits stabilize this step. Pre-flight at publish. Evaluate the intended audience through the lattice and caps. Pause activation if predicted denials exceed tolerance or require a named waiver. Runtime cache. Pin the verdict for the case window so downstream tiles consume the same truth. Consistency beats hopeful speed. Step 3, install guardrails. Encode breaks as code, not culture. Cooling periods at entry and around sends fit the window to motive. Re-entry rules only once per 24 hours or only if severity escalates by a defined delta. Item potency keys. Derive per person, per case, per window. Stamp them through journeys, flows, and external actions. Predicates on triggers. Ignore self-rights. Modified by easel, journey, service, principle. Stabilize suppression, single hierarchy, minimum holds, delayed clears to prevent flag flapping. Add respectful back off everywhere, 5, 15, 45 minutes. Read provider headers. The unanswered question, why did this flood? Vanishes when breaks engage. Step 4, wire alerts with ownership. Alerts should open cases, not conversations. Severity sets SLA. Owner is a named human with a backup, not a channel. Use adaptive cards in teams that carry context. Timeline extract, scores, consent verdicts, cap state, the last message sent, recommended playbook. Buttons, acknowledge, call now, reassign. Start a timer at send. If no acknowledgement in minutes, auto-escalate to the backup or on call. Every click writes to Dataverse under the same case hash. Actions are logged as they happen, not remembered later. Silence must page. Cases must close with disposition codes. Step 5. Close the loop with goals, exits, and attribution. Every journey needs an explicit goal tied to the trigger. Purchase, retention conversation booked, issue resolved, meeting scheduled, usage restored. Author alternate exits, policy denied, cooling active, already processed, declined, time expired. Stamp reason codes at the moment of exit. Attribute the save chain. Trigger evaluation. Unified guardrail verdicts. Action attempts with provider responses and back off. Goal status. Fabric assembles the lineage automatically when IDs and contracts exist. Analytics elevate goal exits, preempted promos, lawful denials with fallbacks, and silences detected and resolved. Raw sends drop in importance. Precision becomes visible. Step 6. Prove it. Contracts, lineage, monitors, cadence, draft schema contracts for events, guardrail artifacts, actions, and exits. Enforce field presence types, enums, and time normalization. Quarantine violations with reason codes. Don't ingest poison. In Fabric, link everything on the fingerprint and ITEM potency keys. Build monitors for absence and excess. Eligible events with 0 evaluations. Policy denied with no fallback. Evaluations per case exceeding thresholds. 429 spikes without back-off. Permission revocations on service principles. Dashboards must make quiet loud, silence, denials, loops, budgets. Operational cadence cements the system. Weekly case review. Bring 3 chains, end-to-end on screen. 1 save, 1 silence detected, 1 failure handled. Approve 1 small fix. Raise a delta by 0.2, lengthen a cooling window, add a fallback, tighten a predicate. Monthly policy simulation, run the lattice across brands and regions, publish block rates, fallbacks, and contention results. Apply right of way, risk and recovery outrank promotion, transactional outranks commercial, human routed outranks broadcast, publish diffs, require waivers for exceptions. Inventory runs weekly, discover flows, journeys, connectors, tag owners, quarantine unknowns, least privilege on service principles. Pre-flight includes permission checks, no silent outages from access loss. Field test before scale, 1 fingerprint per focus zone. Simulate on historical weeks, estimate fire rate, denials, cap conflicts, fallback volume. Launch under observation for 2 weeks. Review every case. Validate ITEM potency collapse, cooling holds, re-entry gates, and alert routing to owners with clocks. Only then expand. Crisis controls stand ready. Loop breakers pause journeys when evaluations per case exceed thresholds in minutes, and page on call with a diagnostic bundle. Last payloads, verdicts, provider responses, recent diffs. Budget guards throttle non-critical flows when connector consumption nears limits and reserve capacity for risk paths. Contention simulators block activation when 2 journeys claim the same moment without a published rule. Measure what matters, messages avoided, preempted promos, lawful denials with fallbacks, goal exits within SLA, and silence detected and repaired become North Stars. Every metric bound to evidence, hashes, timestamps, reasons. Quote the playbook. If you can't prove it, it didn't happen. The journey doesn't die from missing tools. It dies when motion isn't recognized, consent isn't resolved, and actions leave no trace. If you want the system that doesn't blink, subscribe now and watch the next breakdown on self-healing triggers. Grab the forensic playbook checklist linked below and see a live tenant audit where we rebuild the chain on camera.